From the depths of desperation to the heights of financial freedom, we unmask the stories of courageous warriors who battled their money monsters. Join us to deep dive into financial survivor stories.
Hey there, it's Carly and welcome to another episode of Financial Survivor Stories. Join us as we unravel the heart-wrenching story of Natalie, who is today's guest. A story of misguided trust and devastating loss from her mother's partner who shattered her dreams. And the very experts that she sought guidance from were actually leading her astray, and it cost her everything. Without any delay, let's get into it.
Hey, Carly. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I love to get straight into it. So without any delay, let's just jump into telling everybody what your background was like. So where did you come from? Like, what was it like as a child growing up for Natalie?
Yeah, so as a child, my parents separated when I was quite young, pretty much from birth. So I never really had that united family unit. We grew up relatively poor, so my mum had to apply for government housing or housing commission, we call it here. So she applied when I was born and we didn't get approved until I was about 10 years of age. So we were renting up until that, which was really, really hard because we were just a single income family. Like my dad, he worked, but it wasn't, he wasn't bringing in a lot of income and he wasn't able to really give any child support. So they kind of just like had their own little agreement, like he could chip in wherever he could. My mum got the single mother's pension, but then, that wasn't enough to sustain us. So she did do cash jobs on the side to help get us through. But it was tough. There wasn't any room for luxuries, as I would call them now. So we had enough money to obviously pay the rent and the bills and food, but anything over and above that was a real struggle. So I can even remember when I was at school, like even primary school, and it would be like a sports day and my friends would have like Nikes and Adidas and, we could only afford to have Kmart or Target. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I still shop there now.
Same.
But yeah, I love it. Love me a Kmart shop. But it was more so like any money that I would gather from like birthday gifts or any type of celebration like that, Christmases and that, I would save my money and buy things for myself. So my first pair of Nikes or anything that I wanted, I would just buy for myself. And that kind of really set the tone for me for the rest of my life.
School is so hard, isn't it? Like all these kids, I couldn't imagine growing up today. I feel like everything is super expensive. Like when I was a girl, obviously I'm still a girl now, but when I was a girl back then in school, like the biggest like part of makeup I used to have to buy was eyeliner and blue eyeshadow. That was a thing back then, by the way, and it was cool. I wouldn't do it now, but I mean Rimmel was okay to have as as a kid back then. I can imagine buying, like being a girl in school now. I mean, they've got like everything they need to purchase. I mean, how do they do it? Like, especially if they're coming from a background like yours. I mean, how do they do it? How did you like keep up with the kids back then? Did you or not?
Yeah. Oh, I did. I couldn't really. So I guess there was like a lot of hand-me-downs from, other relatives that I would get. But really it was just whatever I could save up for myself. So what ended up happening was, I think in Australia, legally, you can start working at, I think it's 14 and 9 months, but I actually started at the age of 14 because I needed that cash income. I needed something coming in to be able to afford the things that I wanted. And, if my mum needed any help or my dad needed any help, like there was some more income coming in. So pretty much from 14, well, until now I'm still working, but I've never stopped working. Like I worked all the way through high school. So when I got my first mobile phone, I worked to pay my phone bill. Anything that like I said, anything outside of bills and food, anything out like clothes, shoes, going out, my friends would say, hey, let's go to the movies or do that type of stuff. I would have my own money for that from working.
What job were you doing at 14?
So my first job was in a hairdresser every Saturday, cleaning up after the hairdressers or making coffees, washing hair. Then I moved to a cafe where I would work Saturday and Sunday in the cafe. That was when I was in about year 10, probably about 15. And then I worked there for quite a while. And then I moved to the local deli up the road, Fruit Shop Deli.
Nice.
And after school, I would walk up there and do a few afternoons a week. And then once I graduated, then I went into proper full-time work. But I worked all the way through.
And your mum
I
was
never
working
stopped.
as well at this point, or?
Yeah, she was. She actually stopped working when I was, I think it was 17. So she was working, doing babysitting and cleaning and stuff like that, just for that extra money. Because then once I turned 16, they cut her off from the single mother's pension
Right.
because they deemed that I was obviously old enough to
Of
work.
course.
So she wasn't getting that anymore, which was quite hard for her. But then what ended up happening was my mother and I were in quite a large car accident when it was the summer holidays. So I was going from year 11 to year 12. We get like a 6-week break before we start. And we were in a massive car accident.
What happened?
And so we were just driving and we were at a set of lights and the light turned green. So my mum went to drive and someone came rushing through a red light and smashed into us. Yeah, and we went head on into a pole, the traffic light pole, I think it was, and it basically split the car.
Whoa.
Yeah, I broke my arm from the impact of the airbag because it was quite a hard hit. And then I was rushed by ambulance to the hospital where I underwent surgery that day to fix my breaking my
And
arm.
how was your mum?
Well, when the accident first happened, we thought she was okay.
Right.
But what happened was, I think it was maybe 3 months after that, it was after school and she was doing a cleaning job and she was yelling out to me from the bathroom. And I was like, oh, what do you want? Like, I'm doing something kind of thing. And I eventually get up and go to find her and she'd actually had a seizure. So she couldn't move, like she couldn't feel some of her body. And so I took her to the hospital.
How old are you at this point?
And they did. Oh, I'm in year 12 at this point. So I'm 17.
Okay.
I had just turned 17.
Okay.
And my arm was actually still in a cast. So come to think of it, it mustn't have been that long after the accident because I remember I was on my L's still. So I was driving us to the hospital and they rushed her in for some scans and they found that she had a blood clot on her brain from the accident.
Oh my God.
So that had to go in for surgery. She had to go in for surgery that next day. I think it was like a 12-hour surgery.
How are you guys supporting each other at this point, like financially?
Oh, look, at that point, I think it was just, whatever she was making from work. The government subsidy, by that point, she wasn't eligible anymore unless she went on a job seeker allowance or something like that. So it was just whatever, cash she was getting.
And did you get a student allowance as well?
I didn't because I was still at school. But what ended up happening is, and I finished school and my mum said to me, oh, you can apply for a student allowance. Can you apply for that, please? Because we need some financial help. But I had done a makeup course, so I had taken a full-time job based off that. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Like I didn't really think too much about it because I didn't really understand what it all meant. I thought, oh, well, I was a student. I'm kind of just studied makeup. I guess that makes me a student. So I applied for it. But what actually happened was after working for a year, the government contacted me when it was like tax season because I was like really excited. I went to file for my tax return and they garnished my tax return because they said you have been working and getting taxed and now you're also claiming a student allowance.
No.
So to pay that money back, they garnished my tax return.
Oh,
yeah.
No. So you've walked in, your mum's having a seizure and you've now you've rushed to hospital with a broken arm yourself. Not too sure how legal that is, but that's okay. We'll cut that out of the podcast if not. What happened then? So she's at hospital. And then...
so that kind of snowballed. So that day, I would say like the accident was bad enough, but that day when the blood clot, my mum has suffered, just as a preface, she's suffered from depression and anxiety her whole life. So that incident there was like life shattering for her. She thought she was going to die basically. So her whole
course.
world came crashing down. And that kind of snowballed the next phase of her life and mine. So 10 years, my life changed from that day for the next 10 years. From 17 to 27, she had health problem after health, but like she got a lot of health problems from the accident.
Mental or health?
Mental and physical, like detached retina in her eye. There was just like a lot of physical ailments that she got, but the mental, like the anxiety and the depression was really, really bad. And at the time, because it wasn't our fault, our insurance companies were talking to each other, like the third party and ours, to try and come to some agreement, because the doctors basically deemed her never able to work again, regardless, right? So there was talks of, some sort of, I guess you would call it compensation, because what actually ended up happening to her, and this went on for another couple of years. So I'm saying probably when I was 17 to 19, she got so bad with her depression that she had actually attempted to take her own life a few times. And she was hospitalized, and she was put into also a mental hospital for a month at a time. I think she went in there 2 or 3 times. So the actual impact that accident had, although it was just a split second, had a dramatic impact on her life. And so the lawyers were like, no, well, she can't work, and it's actually having an ongoing effect on her mentally. She's like mentally incapacitated at this point. So there was like a payout, basically talk from there.
So okay, so it's gone through a lawyer, or well, it's gone through the insurances essentially and a lawyer. So the car accident, did it pay out in the end?
It did, yeah. So I think I was 19 when she got that payout.
And how much was the payout?
I actually never really found out. She never told me the dollar value.
What do you think?
But I know it was between 600,000 to $1 million.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And how long? So this is basically a couple of years this took to obviously get the money from.
Yeah, it does take time to go through. Obviously, there's like investigations, and we had to submit the right documents. And because her condition was only worsening, like I said, the suicide attempts was like 1 year, and then the next year, and then the hospitalization, and then the time she was in hospital. So there was a lot of paperwork, a lot of doctors' reports and what.
How did this affect your relationship with your mom? I mean, you're financially struggling. She's struggling mentally, and you're under 20.
Yeah, look, it was frightening, I would say is the word to describe it, because my mum and I lived, I guess, semi-independently of each other. Like, she was my primary carer, but, she would have a normal life. She'd go out with friends and do certain types of things. She'd go exercise and whatever. And I knew she had tablets for anxiety and depression, but it was sustainable. Like, she lived a relatively normal life. When that happened, she was solely dependent on me.
Wow.
For everything, like emotionally. So basically I'm fresh out of school. Everyone's going out or, going traveling and doing normal things. And I'm, calling her 16 to 25 times a day just to make sure she's still alive. So, it impacted me in that sense, because I was just so scared something was going to happen to her. And I thought, if I'm not there for her and I'm not doing what I'm meant to be doing, something could go wrong and it's going to be all my fault, basically. So I really took on that responsibility quite hard. Yeah.
Natalie, you're such a caring person. Like, obviously I know you personally, and
thank you.
that's a lot of pressure for a child. You're still really a child at that point. I mean, I remember being 18, 19, 20, and I thought I was, 40, but you really are an adolescent at that point. Sort of, how did that affect you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went down the path, which probably isn't the right way to handle it. But again, I didn't really know any better. I kind of went down the path of, I was having my own anxiety.
Yeah.
So I would, drink a little bit too much and try and just like numb myself out with whatever I could, so that when I was with her, I was present, I was dealing, I was there. But then when I was having my time, I just completely numbed it all out, to be honest with you. I just went a little bit wild for a moment there, because that, was the only, I guess, freedom that I got, or, sense of normality that I got once I had a couple of drinks. My anxiety would calm down and I could interact with people and relate to people a bit better. So that's kind of what I did. I never really went to therapy or anything. It wasn't until my 30s that I actually started to go to therapy.
Wow. Do you know,
Yeah.
I think there's probably so many people out there that have things happen to them, their families, personal, whatever it may be. I suppose one of the easiest options is to numb yourself, right? Like, it's the easiest way to deal with pain. You obviously change as a person when pain happens to you, and people take that in different directions, and I don't think people talk about it enough. Like, the reason why most of us are crazy, including myself at this point in our lives, because something's happened to you earlier on. People don't just end up, having problems and anxiety and all this stuff usually, because something happened to them yesterday. It's usually a huge buildup of things over years that's happened. And it's so funny because obviously you're on this podcast and you're doing this, but I just think, and I wanted to highlight this because I was thinking about it as you was telling me sort of previously what you were going to talk about, and you're my really close friend, and there's some things that I never even knew, and I thought, there must be so many people out there that actually don't, like, genuinely tell someone like who's close to them things that have gone on, in the past. Maybe they don't want to bring it up, and maybe it seems weak, or I don't know, like to bring it on. But I think it would like help each other if we actually spoke to each other, especially, close people, and say, hey, what happened? And, to help people through, like,
right.
help each other's friends, like actually ask and be interested in people, because what you're going through now is like sometimes because it happened in the past. I just think that it's just so funny. I was thinking about
absolutely.
it. We just don't talk enough about it. So your mum has had this money. Obviously, you're not too sure how it is now. I'm assuming this is a big deal, right? Nearly $1 million. This is a huge deal for your family. You've had nothing, you couldn't buy anything as kids or as a family. So what happened? What did this do to you guys? Did you go out and champagne it on boats, or what happened?
Oh, I wish. Yeah. I mean, look, it was definitely a blessing.
Yeah.
I will say that, to be able to have that. I mean, obviously what we went through was very traumatic. So to have that, I thought in my mind, oh, wow, this is the light at the end of the tunnel. But I'm looking at it from an individual that, although I had experienced trauma, I wasn't in the state that she was in, so for her, she didn't even blink an eye about it. She wouldn't even, to be honest with you, I mean, the mental state that she was in, I'm surprised anyone even gave her that money without a caveat on it of like, we're going to release a certain amount to you or give you some financial advice. Because a couple of months before that, she had not even a month or so before the payout, she had just been released from hospital from the last attempt to take her life. So, her mental state wasn't, I guess, the best. And my mental state and my emotional maturity or mental maturity wasn't there enough to be able to, I guess, step in and help. So this is kind of where things went a bit haywire, and where her partner kind of started to manipulate her and manipulate the situation to his own benefit.
Let's go back a bit. So this partner, when did so we're going to call this partner Dave. So Dave came in. So when did Dave come in, and what happened? Let's tell the story about when the money and what happened there.
Yeah, so Dave came into our lives. Well, him and my mum started dating, I think, when I was about 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
So quite early on. It was just a horrible relationship. Like, it was a very toxic relationship. They were arguing all the time, together, not together. I don't think we actually lived with him, like, at any point, but in the beginning, but they were dating or whatever for quite a few, up until, so when I was about 3 or 4, up until 2020. So quite a while, about 30 years. So very toxic relationship. And when she was in her darkest place, they were kind of separated at that point. So when she was being hospitalized and that, they were separated.
Were they together when she had the accident?
So they were always on and off. I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
And then like a couple of months later, no.
Yeah.
But then what ended up happening was when the payout conversation started,
Right.
when the compensation conversation started, all of a sudden he's
Yeah.
right there. He's by her
Yeah.
side, number one fan, you know. So what ended up happening was I never saw any of her money. I never benefited from any of it financially. What ended up happening was, from what I understand, I mean, we don't really even talk about it now. You know, it's quite triggering for her, but I'm pretty sure she basically just handed the money over to him and was like, all right, well, you know what to do, you know, you're working, you know what to do, and kind of just let him have free reign with it. And he, from memory, just invested in properties all over. We were renting. So then at this point, the payouts happened. We're living with him now in a rental property, the three of us, in a suburb I've never lived in before, in an area I'm not familiar with.
Right.
And we're living with him, we're renting. I'm thinking, why are we renting?
Yeah.
Like, we've just gotten a payout. I mean, because we had to obviously move out of the housing commission because
Got money.
we're financially secure,
Yeah.
which is fair, obviously. There's people that actually
Of
need it.
course.
So now we're in a rental property and he's buying all of these apartments or houses or whatever he's doing. And I'm living with them, and that's when the cracks really start to show. So he's now picking fights with me because now he wants me out, right? Because I'm getting older, I'm getting wiser,
Yeah.
I'm talking back
Of
at
course.
him, I'm starting to ask
Right.
questions.
Okay.
So he's like, she's enemy number
Yeah.
one, we got to get her out. Then I remember we're renting, we're living together, and he goes and buys a 1-bedroom apartment.
Right.
Right. And keep in mind that he's on title here, he's calling all the shots, he's doing everything. And they buy a 1-bedroom apartment, and he comes home and he's like, well, you have to leave now. Like, we're moving in by ourselves. And my mum's like, oh, I don't know what's going on, why he's done this, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, where am I going to go? Like, you know, I was just confused and scared and nervous. I had never lived out of home before. At this point, I'm 22. Because, you know, there was just a lot of tension, a lot of hostility. He was like trying to tell me to pay rent. He would come home drunk, wake me up, pick fights with me, yell and scream, and I'd have to leave the house in the middle of the night and go and sleep in my car so I could sleep before work. Like, it just became really hostile. And anyway, so they tell me, oh, we bought this 1-bedroom apartment. I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking, oh, all right, well, how long does that take to all happen? I guess I've got some time here. So what ended up happening, I think it was maybe, it wouldn't be more than a week or two later, I come home from work and the house is empty. Furniture gone, everything gone except for my stuff. My bedroom was full of all my stuff and the house was empty. And I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, I thought, all right, you know, in hindsight, looking back, I'm thinking, all right, my mum wants to maybe live with this guy, start a life with him, but, you know, sit down with your child and say, all right, we're going to help you. Maybe we'll help you do a rental application, or we'll help go guarantor, or we'll give you the bond, like help you on your way. Because I was working, but I wasn't earning that much money, you know. But no, so I came home from work and the house was empty and I had to just call a friend. I didn't know what else to do. So I called my best friend and she came by and we just loaded up both of our cars. And I called the local Kennard storage, and I was like, I need somewhere to put my stuff. And we spent probably until like 11 midnight just like stacking up this storage unit. And I'm thinking, what do I do? Where do I go? You know, it's 11, 12 o'clock at night. So I think I'm pretty sure I slept in my car that night as well, went to work the next day, and then called my dad, who was already remarried and, you know, had his own life. And I'm like, you know, do you mind if I come stay with you? So I ended up staying there for, I think it was a week. And then I found roommates and moved out. Yeah.
That must have been so scary.
Oh, it was. Yeah. It was very confronting. I was like, I don't know what to do, because it's not really something I was educated on. Like, I didn't know how it all worked, and I felt very alone and scared and not wanted. Like, it was just so many different things. Like, there was just so many different emotions at that time.
Did you have arguments with your mom about this at the time?
I did, but then I was always like so scared that she was going to harm herself.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of shut up and just be like, it's okay, don't worry, I'll figure it out, like more so reassuring her that I was going to be okay, because I just knew deep down she
There was
wasn't
something
in the right
wrong.
frame of
Yeah.
mind. Yeah.
So did you at that point get any help from like professionals or family members other than, your dad at that point? Like, do you have
No, that was it. I just moved out and I've been out of home ever since, and I just figured it out on the way. Like I just made it work basically. It was just out on
so
my own.
you had a job, you're paying your own rent at this point?
Yeah, so paying my own rent, I was sharing. I was actually sharing with my cousin and his partner, so that was actually quite fun. We had a great
Okay,
time.
that's good.
So
Positive.
yeah, and that's it. That's when the real parties started.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a great time living with them, and then eventually I met someone, and then we moved in together, and
Okay.
then yeah, my life just kind of kept on moving forward basically.
So they've now moved into this apartment, this 1 bedroom apartment, and I'm assuming that's
Yeah.
not $1 million apartment. So the rest of the money is now where? Where is this money? Where has it gone?
Well, this is the thing. We could never ask him. So you could never ask him how much was in the bank. You could never ask him what he had bought. You could never ask him, is there savings? It was just, he would go up like into this massive aggression, fireball rage. And my mum was like, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. And so let's fast forward now till I'm maybe 26, 27, and I'm living with my partner at the time. And my mum calls me and she goes, oh, Dave's now decided that we're moving to the Central Coast. We're out of money. We're selling everything. We're moving to the Central Coast, and he's going to find work up there, because he had basically, from when he got the money and once he got the loans and stuff, he pretty much stopped working, really. He was very lazy. Like he never really wanted to work, to be honest with you. So the phone call happens. She's like, we're moving to the Central Coast. She goes, but he's going to go up there first and suss it all out. So I need to come and live with you, he said. And I was like, okay, but I've just moved in
Yeah.
with my partner. Like, now this is impacting my life. Like, we've been living separate, like doing our own things. Why is this now my burden? Anyway, the funny part, if you can call it funny, is they both her and Dave come and live with us for a year.
Right.
He doesn't go to the Central Coast. He's not working. He's just on my couch all day, smoking, drinking, doing whatever he wants to do, until I basically, a year after that, I was like, nah, that's it. We're going up to the Central Coast. You're getting sorted. You're doing, what you have to do. Like, I'm done with this, because I'm like, why? I was helping to help my mum.
Yeah.
But enough is enough, right?
Yeah.
She wasn't getting any better. She wouldn't leave her bed all day. Like, for her to have a shower and brush her teeth was a big deal. Still, 10 years later. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was just no progression, and it was just getting worse and worse. So they end up buying a property in the Central Coast.
What happened to
and
the
moving
other
up
property? Where did that go?
He sold them all, apparently, but he was always complaining that he had no money and they were out of money. And I said, but I don't understand how. And he reckons he lost money on the properties. He reckons he had to, try and renovate them. They were just bad investments. I don't know where they were or why they were bad investments, but I just got told that they were bad investments and they were out of money. So they went to the Central Coast and bought a property there. I think they bought it for maybe $325,000, and they had a little bit of money left in the bank after all the sales. And I said, look, I'm going to start taking over now, because at that point I was working for a property developer.
Okay.
And they were talking about some really good investments that we could get into cheaply, that, we're going to get some capital growth and stuff like that. So I took a portion of their money, which was $70,000, and bought a property through where I was working. And I said to them, look, I'm going to help you. I'm going to invest this money. And when there's capital growth, when the property goes up in value, we'll sell it, and that'll inject cash back in for you guys to help. Because now they're getting older, and I wanted to make sure that my mum had some sort of a nest egg, right? Because they've still got a mortgage now in the Central Coast. They don't own that outright. They don't own anything outright at this point. My mum's not working still, highly anxious, highly depressed. So I end up investing the money for them, And 2 years later, we sold it for a $200,000 profit.
Wow.
So that gave, I know, I was quite impressed with myself, to be honest. So that was like a one and done fluke, though. I'm not very lucky with property. So
sorry, just to confirm, the Central Coast property, you're saying that they
Yeah.
don't own that outright.
no.
So how did they buy that property?
So they used, I think that they borrowed 80%. So they put a 20% deposit in plus stamp duty, but he wasn't working. So it had to go into my name. So because I bought that property, I lost my first homeowner's grant opportunity as well.
Okay, so they've moved in with you. They then move
Yeah.
away, but then to be able to,
Yeah.
for them to move away, you've had to then essentially go and buy them a property in your name to get them out of your place.
Yeah.
That's what you've done. You're like, I just want to get them
Yeah.
out. I need to get them out, so I'm going to put my name on something, even if it's to sacrifice your own first home buyer's grant.
Oh, I would, I was like, just get out of my house. I don't really care, So
Yeah.
at the time, you're not really thinking, you just want a solution. So yeah, they kind of worked, those two situations kind of worked hand in hand. One side, they had bought the property in the Central Coast. The mortgage was only about $280,000. It wasn't too much.
Okay.
So that was doable.
Yeah.
And then he picked up work up there. And then there was the Melbourne property, which was kind of in the background, generating something there. So they're living in the Central Coast. I'm thinking, great. Okay, I've sold the property, the investment property. I've given them the cash. Now I'm sure
free.
with this mortgage and the cash, that's it.
Yeah.
Like surely everyone's learnt their lesson. And I was very much like more hands-on at this point and quite like, I'm going to be monitoring the money.
Okay.
And I actually took control of the bank account that had the money, that cash in it. And I said, that's it. You want money, you have to come and ask me.
Wow.
Like you're not touching this money anymore. You want $1, you have to come to me.
How did you get him to do that? I mean, just surely
Well, I think by that point, I think he needed my help.
Okay.
There was no other option. And he just saw dollar signs because now he saw what we did with the investment property. So he's, happy as Larry because he's thinking, great, now I've got cash and whatever else. But then obviously things came up. Then he started to want to renovate. And then he would go and knock down a wall and go, oh no, now I need to hire someone to fix it. So then I'd have to like get cash out to help them fix it. Oh no, mum's car's broken down. She needs a new car. Okay, get cash out. So there was lots of like times where my mum would be like, just do it. Just, get him the money. And I'm thinking, here we go again. Yeah. But what do? He's a master manipulator. He knew what he was doing the whole time. It's almost like he had it planned out. Like, he couldn't keep the money in his hands for more than 5 minutes. So that happened. So then let's go to where it all crumbled for the final time. And this is now 2020.
Okay.
So just before COVID hit, my mum calls me and said he wants to leave me. It's over. He's moving out.
So is this because all the money's gone now? I mean, I'm just...
Yeah, so basically a lot of the money had gone and he just didn't want to work anymore. So he was telling me he couldn't find work and they needed money to survive. So yeah, I'm just like dishing out 10 grand here, 20 grand there, whatever. But what can I do? At the end of the day, it's their money. And by this point, I'm like, do you know what? Like, why am I worried about it? Like, it's not, I'm making my own money. I'm doing my own thing. I kind of had enough of it. But yeah, so savings are now dwindling. Now he's stopped working and now he wants out.
Right.
So he wants out of the relationship. And he wants to be on his own. And he calls me and he goes, that's it. I'm moving out. I'm not making any more mortgage repayments. And you have to sell the property. That was his demand. But at this point, I had never heard him so crazy in my life. Like he literally flipped a switch in his brain. Like it was like I was talking to a completely different person. And yeah, that was like February 2020 when that conversation happened.
Right. And at this point, you've spoken to experts about this. I mean, who are you?
Yeah, so I didn't want to sell the property because my mum loved living there and she had like friends and had a little community going on. So I really wanted to do everything that I could to save that property. So 2020 we know was a crazy time for everyone. And so I was working, but then by the 1st of April 2020, I was made redundant due to COVID.
Right.
So now I've lost my job. And the COVID pandemic did impact the property market in Australia in the beginning, in the sense of like prices went very low.
And he's
right?
not paying the rent, or you're paying? Who's paying the mortgage?
No, he's not paying the mortgage at all.
Okay.
So I'm panicking because now it's in my name. He's not worried. Why is he worried? It's on his name. It's my credit rating now.
Exactly.
Right? So he's like, I'm out, kind of thing. And I said, what the hell am I going to do? So this is at the very beginning of COVID, where there wasn't a lot of, no one kind of knew what was going to happen. So I was trying to seek advice from experts, like real estate agents and the like, and no one kind of told me that I could have just paused the mortgage for 6 to 12 months. So I didn't know that. So I thought, okay, I've lost my job now. I can't afford the mortgage because I'm renting. I'm going to have to sell this property even though I don't want to sell it.
So what did the real estate tell you then in order?
Yeah, so he's like, oh, no, you have to sell it because, if you start struggling with the repayments, they're going to repossess the house off. Or no, they're going to call you and they're going to ask you to resubmit your serviceability for the loan. And if you can't meet serviceability, they're going to impose the sale on you or something like that. And then I started to panic because the prices that we were getting was only, say, $395,000 to buy the house. That we weren't making anything at all, hardly, right? When you factor in stamp duty and interest and
everything, solicitors,
rates and whatever, solicitors. So I just said, you know what? Okay, I'm scared. I can't affect my credit rating because I did have an issue in the past with my credit and I didn't want to be in that same situation. So I went ahead and sold the property and we made basically next to nothing of it. Had I had the right advice, had someone had said to me, look, why don't you just pause the payments? It's not going to affect your credit file and just wait to see what happens and let's ride this wave for 3 to 6 months. That property by October of 2020, we sold by July. By October 2020, it doubled in value.
So this makes me really angry. There are so many people out here, that are out there that talk about and give financial advice, that give, advice on any situation that they're actually not qualified in. Like, to give financial advice like that, people work for years and years and years to gain qualifications to be able to do that. The fact that they did that, he's a real estate agent. He's qualified in selling property, right? That is his job. That's his qualification. The way that he actually told you was misleading. It was absolutely misleading, and it's illegal for them to do that as well. And for anybody that this has happened to, because I know it's the same with sales, isn't it? It's always at the benefit of themselves. They're given these advice.
Oh, of course, he was completely benefiting himself. He's thinking it's a quiet time in sales at the moment. No one's selling. I'm just going to keep pushing this girl, because I was completely transparent with him up front. I told him my whole situation. I said, I just want you to know how in dire straits that I am. Like, this is what this guy has done to me. Do you have any advice for me? Can you help me? And he was literally pushing me nonstop to sell that property. And I'm thinking back now, like, I should have just trusted my gut. Something in me was just like, wait, we don't know what's happening yet, or maybe gone to speak to my bank. I was too scared to speak to the bank because I thought, I don't want to raise an alarm bell, because he's telling me if you raise an alarm bell, they're going to do something, So I was scared. I didn't know what to do.
Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to the Natalie back then, and to anybody who's literally, because obviously with us going through the financial situation at the moment, there's probably going to be people that are struggling with paying their home. What would you say to them, to your earlier self now?
Look, definitely, number one, trust your gut.
Yeah.
So if you have a feeling that there's something a solution that you can find that's for your best benefit, go with that. Definitely talk to your bank. I know it sounds scary, but just have a conversation. If you don't want to do that, maybe even talk to a mortgage broker, an accountant, a financial advisor, someone that's used to looking at numbers or being creative with solutions. That's
not always a cost as well. There are free options out there, aren't there, for people
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll actually link them down below some resources, because there is legal aid, and there is people that you can actually go to and speak about financial problems and understand your situation, because the best thing that you can do is speak to probably as many people as possible, I think, if you're going through a
Oh,
situation like that.
absolutely. Yeah, get as much advice as you can. Absolutely. And, I think now I probably could have even gone on a forum,
Yeah.
or, saw if there was somebody else that had a similar situation to me. So, just really do your research, do your due diligence, and just trust yourself that you will make the right decision for you, that one that sounds and feels the most right for
Yeah.
you.
So don't panic, breathe,
Yeah.
slow it down a little
Yes,
bit.
deep breaths.
It's when we
Yeah.
start making decisions that obviously one are out of our comfort zone, because we don't have the knowledge to deal with it. Nobody understands really what they're dealing with financially when you don't understand the situation in regards to real estate. No one knows. It's always a risk buying real estate,
Yeah.
right? Everyone says that they know what's going to happen up and down, but I'm sure there are people that do know, looking at history, but we really don't know what's going to happen with property. So you can't really rely on somebody's advice. It's really got to be
That's
you
correct.
finding out all the information and making a choice, but listening to your gut. It's a good one.
Yeah, and if you can't afford it, and it comes that there's no other avenue, and you have to sell, and you have to do that. Look, it is a
Yeah,
big, tough pill to swallow, but if it is going to give you that relief
yeah.
and that ability to get back on your feet, and start again, and have less pressure on yourself, then do it, because your mental health is the most important
So
thing.
I always excuse me, edit that back out. I just want to also note that if somebody is giving you misleading and incorrect advice, whether it was deliberate or not, in regards to especially financial advice, you can actually go to the ACCC. I was looking at this because I wanted to obviously tell you that there may be something that you can go and speak to there. Obviously I'm not a financial advisor. I have no idea. I just hear these stories and think that there's got to be somebody else that's going through this experience,
Yeah.
and to just understand that you actually don't have to go at it alone. So if you don't have family members that can encourage and help you and guide you, then genuinely please go and speak to somebody that can help. But the ACCC is somebody that can actually look into, and you can make a complaint and potentially get some money back. So have a look into that afterwards. So
No, for sure.
what
Thank you.
was what was the wake up call? Because at this moment in time, you've now sold this property for no profit. And where's your mom at this point?
Yeah, so she came to live with me.
Right.
So we lived together. She came back to Sydney. She came to live with me for just over a year. We got through the COVID lockdowns and everything together. And then I had an investment property myself that I had purchased with my brother, and it was time for us to sell that. So I sold that, luckily, after when the property prices had gone back up. So that was good. And I took the proceeds from that and bought my mum an apartment. That's now her forever home.
Wow. Again, are
Yeah.
you like some sort of like superhero?
I thought, you know what? I officially never have to worry again, because I'm 100% in control now. There's no one else. So yeah, I was happy to do that, because she deserves at her age to
Yeah.
feel secure, and she's done so much work on herself to get to a better space, and she just deserves to have that peace now. So,
She's so lucky that she's got you.
oh, thank you.
Seriously. You've totally rescued her like a million times. And
Should change my name to
you
Rescuer.
know Natalie Rescuer, or just Rescuer in general.
Be easy to say.
So,
Yeah.
how after everything do you think that this has changed your life and your goals? Because you have new goals now, don't you?
I do, yeah. So during COVID, it was a very reflective time for me. And I decided that my priorities and my values were more aligned in, making a difference in the world and helping people. My whole career up until then, I was just chasing money, because or money makes things easier and, that type of thing. So it was always about money and sales, jobs and all that type of stuff. But now I have started my own therapy business. I am now a qualified therapist.
Wow. What's it called?
And it's called NLG therapy.
Okay.
My initials.
What does it stand for?
Well, it stands for Nurturing Limitless Growth.
I love it.
But it's also my initials, so it's a little play on that. I thought that was
Good
quite
work.
intelligent. One of the smartest ideas I've ever had, to be honest.
I'm going to say that's not true, but anyway.
Well, thank you. You're a bit biased, though, I think.
Maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, but I help people for a living now, and that just, makes my soul happy. So I'm very happy. I'm in a much better place.
Okay, so anybody that's going through or has been through a similar situation, what would you sort of going forward, what advice would you give? Because therapy is a big thing, right? Obviously, you've been through a lot. You've been through your own therapy. You've now learned how to help others. So what sort of advice in regards to the therapy side of things would you give?
Yeah, look, I mean, I was, believe it or not, like I said, I hadn't done therapy until I was in my 30s. So I was, of the belief that I think a lot of people are, where it's like, oh, I don't need help. It's fine. I'll get through it. I'm strong. And, you're kind of taught to just push through. There's people worse off than you. There's people with bigger problems than you. And in fact, that's completely incorrect. What you're facing is what you're facing. It's individual to you, and it impacts everything from your relationships to your health, your mental health, everything, right? How you treat yourself, how you speak to yourself. So if you are going through anything, no matter what you deem as big or small, there are people out there. There are a lot of free resources out there for help as well. But therapy definitely helped me just kind of normalize my emotions, because there was that disconnect of, I shouldn't be so depressed, or I shouldn't be in victim mentality, or that type of thing. So it really just allowed me to create that space for myself where I kind of looked at it from maybe a more neutral perspective. It's hard sometimes when you're depressed to see that there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, or you think, oh no, that's it, I'm just doomed to be like this forever. It's not true. You can get better and you can get help. And I think definitely taking that step to just talk to a therapist or find what therapy works for you. I've tried many different therapies. I've tried, kinesiology, talk therapy. There's been a lot of different therapies that I've tried. So find what works for you. And I really just encourage people to definitely seek help. Yeah.
And let's acknowledge all of these hurdles that you've been through as well. It's serious shit. There's so many people have been through so much, but you've taken those experiences and now you're putting it into something great, so you can actually help others grow, and live an empowered life, right?
Absolutely. Trust. I know it sounds so cliche, but sometimes I think, wow, if there was actually someone listening to the thoughts in my head, I actually would have been hospitalized at some point, right? So I know how it feels to have to seek help. I know how it feels to feel like you're at rock bottom and that there's no way out. And if I can get to the place that I'm at today with, how low and dark I felt at some points, I know for a fact that it's possible for everybody. I really do believe that. And you just have to have that one little part of you that's like, I'm just going to give it a shot. I'm just going to go and see if I can work through this, give it one more shot just to see if I can, have a more harmony in my life, or, have a bit of a change, bit of a positive change in my life. And I really believe that. I believe it's possible for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that sometimes you can try one therapy and it not work, but don't give up, because like you said,
don't give up.
There's different options out there, isn't it? And I suppose we need to make sure that we are, that we're telling people that, one, you don't have to struggle alone. There is guidance out there. The first one may not be for you, but just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a few psychologists and I was like, no, I don't like you very much. So I just,
Actually, we went to the same one. Don't you remember?
We did.
We
that was what was. We're
not going to say the name, but she did. Oh, no. It's a she now. But they did talk about, what was it? How they made bread for the birds outside, and what they put in.
Right.
Yeah, they made cakes for the birds.
It's like you're charging me. you're charging me $250 a pop. Hello, are we going to talking about me? Like, what are we doing here? Like, not to be selfish or anything, but I'm paying you.
But it is all about me. Hello. Look, obviously
Yeah.
we carried on from there, and we kept on going and found the people that
Yes.
made us grow or whatever. You know, we've all had therapy. I don't think it should be something that is, you know, is looked at and scoffed at. You know, I think it's good to be able to work on
No.
yourself. Do you know, I remember you telling me this one thing that's actually stayed with me forever and ever and ever.
Oh, no. What?
No, basically you said to me that you know, girls especially will go out there and they'll spend like $300 on their hair, but they won't spend $50 on their mental health. And I was like, oh my fucking God,
Yeah.
that's me.
It's so true. It's so true. And I find myself doing it sometimes now as
Yeah.
well. Like, I'm like, oh, should I do this or do that? But look, definitely like investing in yourself
Yeah.
and putting yourself as your number one priority and going, if I'm okay and if I'm functioning well, then everything around me will start to follow
Yeah.
suit. And it's true. So, you know, investing in yourself should be your number one priority, definitely.
I think this has been so valuable. I think the takeaways that I've got from this is basically, you know, if you're in a financially abusive relationship, speak to somebody who's legal, speak to somebody who can give you proper advice. You know, obviously find a safe place to either go and plan something. So either you can get out or you can discuss it with somebody who is actually a professional that's going to give you the correct information. And if somebody is misleading you and you think that you've been misled at any point, then there might be some help that you can get there as well. But also to go and sort yourself out and go and work on yourself afterwards. If you've been through something, you know, it's not over yet, right? You can still go and get all your goals and go and achieve heaps of things.
I believe in you, everybody.
I believe in you too. You're incredible. Okay, so as a fun question to end the podcast, I like to do this. So I want to ask if you could share with us what your superpower is.
Oh, you know, come to think of it, I don't know if this is a superpower, but I have been told, and I do feel that I have the, if I do say so myself, that I have the ability to make people feel calm in any situation.
I'd agree with that.
And I feel like you do?
Yeah, I'm so calm right now.
Oh, good. It's working. I didn't even notice it was working. That's a real superpower. Yeah. So I think that, and it's important because, you know, sometimes when you're in situations where, you know, it's a heightened, you know, time and someone has to be calm and calm it down. I think it's a good superpower.
I think it's amazing. And I completely agree with you because you are always first dialed when I'm going through. I'm like, I need that person to calm me down. Ring, 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 ring.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I just want to say that you are an incredible person. You are.
Thank you. So are you.
You are, and can never take a compliment, by the way. But you are so resilient. Resilience literally radiates from you. So I like to call you my mermaid, my little Ariel, with your beautiful red hair. And I just feel like now you need to put all the effort into yourself. You're a determined person. You're going to make it. I absolutely agree with that. Thank you so much, Natalie, for sharing with us. Thanks, guys. If you love what you heard today, be sure to go and like and share us on Instagram, Facebook, Financial Survivor Stories, and definitely send to anybody who you think that this might be of value to. If you also do know anybody or yourself wants to become a warrior on this podcast and share their story too to help others, then please message me as we'd love to have you on. It just is so important that we spread the message that no one has to go at this alone, and someone has been through the same situation and is willing to tell their story of how they got out of it. But thank you so much, and we will see you again next time.